Tyrantel is someone that doesn't generate any hype for me. Some of you guys may understand if you saw those other videos of me talking about him, but in here, you'll have a better understanding of why I feel that way. Now, I'll admit, he is a very strong character, but he doesn't do anything that catches my eye besides like 1 or 2 things about him. Later on in this video, you're gonna see me talk more about him, what he can do, and of course, how to build him. So with this talent, the damage taken is reduced after taking action, applies Seal of Supremacy to the chosen enemy, whereas attacks after the enemy in battle that ignores immunity cannot be dispelled that has 3 turns, which has a cooldown of 2 turns. When an enemy with Seal of Supremacy is within 3 blocks, their offensive and defensive stats are reduced. Upon that, manifest the martial spirit of past emperors, Imperial Will, can cast Battle Echo on one chosen non-summoned allied unit, causing it to inherit all of Tyrantel's ability and act immediately. The spec can only be triggered once per battle. Now that description is pretty vague, but it's basically like a revive. You get some insane damage mitigation that gets even better later on with the skills. That Seal of Supremacy is pretty dumb. It's really dumb for all it can do. But going back to the Battle Echo thing, that is my favorite thing about Tyrantel. His version of reviving is him sacrificing an ally, so there's a lot of thinking that goes behind it, which can be beneficial or bite you right back. His best class is Flyer, mainly for the mobility. They're also known for the high magic defense too, which is a nice thing. His infantry makes him a lot more tankier, but despite that, with all that Tyrantel has, his tanking capability is still gonna be very good as a flyer. For the Mastery Stones, you want HP, attack, and defense. Headwear you can do magic defense instead of defense. In PvP, there is a lot more physical attackers out there, so defense may be the best choice for you. Weapon accessory you can do skill or defense. With the Arena Stones, either a defensive or an offensive set. Something balanced I can try to put out there is something maybe like HP attack, more defense, reduce crit damage taken, and then something like crit rate. Going for something balanced is really hard to put out there. There's a few that you can go about it, so it's not really easy. His best soldiers include Steel Winged Warrior, hits well but only survives a lot better against range attacks, Dragon Knight same case but melee attacks. You have the Vanguard, has good HP and attack, can heal after battle a little bit, and reflects melee attacks. The Cavalier can reduce their attack and defense if above 80% HP, which allows surviving and attacking a bit better. These 4 are his best one because of the 5 movement. In his infantry class, you can use the Guardian Infantry or Phalanx for better physical survivability. His best weapon as a flyer will be Rag and Routing Light for damage. You have Sigil to be more defensive that also does fixed damage, Throne Guardian for the HP, Last Justice to lower their offensive stats when attacking. As an infantry, you can use Mimir for sustain, Sealed Guardian for the defense, even Dragon Slayer Graham for the huge HP. However, if you really only care about damage with them, then maybe Crystal Stinger for the crit and defense ignore. Just make sure to have plenty of skill on him. Then the Bone Crusher for the defense or armor drop. His best armor is obviously going to be Last Rites. He can use the heavy ones like Battle Armor. Then you get to use Azure Legend, Bloodline, Aeolus, lastly, the Lizard Skin. I really don't recommend Tiamat since he's going to be alternating between his soldiers. In the infantry class, what you see here is still going to be the best choice with the heavy armor. You know, Battle Armor will always be on top, then it falls in line to Aeolus or Bloodline. The helmet, if you want more damage, then either Tear or Owl. I really recommend Tear since you do get the extra 5% skill damage increase. Owl only increases your skill damage by 5% and also giving more AoE damage, which is something that Tyrantel doesn't do. For survivability, you got Flower for the HP, Fedicon for the huge defense and magic defense increase, but that's if his HP is higher than the enemy. You have Aeneas for HP and defense increase, Wing of Twilight where if entering battle, if either defense or magic defense is higher, then a portion of that goes to the other defensive stats. Then you got the Snow Beanie, which increases your defense by 50% if you're being attacked. You can use King's Crown if you want, but Tyrantel would really benefit from the others if he really wants to tank stuff better, or just focus as a semi-damage dealer. As an infantry class, you have Tear for more damage or Aeneas to survive better. He's also one of the few characters that benefit from the Hierophant's Helmet, which increases attack if being attacked. With the accessory, if you just care about pure damage, then Judge, Slayers, or Prisoners. There's also situational ones that helps maintain attack, or Bloodthirsty Nail for the silence immunity, Wing and Shin Guard for more defense, and Edge of Memories for the skill cooldown. For more bulk, you have Overlords to prevent stat down and mobility, Butterfly to be immune to 1 debuff, and when that happens, you get to be healed. There's also Bond of Arashi. This one gives immunity to stun and passive disable, which will be a huge help for him because he has battle ones like, for example, letting him deal more damage, and another one to reduce the enemy's attacking int. In his infantry, he'll also have access to Apex Boots and Wings for more mobility if you care about being more offensive. As for enchants, you got Breeze. You can use Full Moon for flexible stats. It's going to be an enchant that a lot of people are going to be using for him. Tyrantel is an offensive tank, so having Full Moon can help cover both of his playstyle. His best enchant stats are going to be HP and attack, and both defense and magic defense. I will always say focus on a bunch of HP and attack, since getting the perfect enchant is very difficult. Normally getting the third stat is typically a bonus. Now if you're doing it for a PvP, I can understand going that far for Tyrantel since he wants to be really bulky, but I wouldn't really stress over it that much. You know, having HP and attack or having HP and int is always good enough if you have plenty of it. Alright, so hopefully you guys have a better understanding on how to build your Tyrantel. The way how I built mine is to be more offensive while still trying to maintain some degree of bulkiness. I like to be really offensive, that's just my playstyle. So building characters that way is just my preferred way of doing things. So with that being said, let's go right on into his first working stage. Alright, so for this one, you can be up against Isolde, Angel, and then Patricia. Now with Tyrantel's kit, she would allow you to clear the stage with no problem. But if you really want to play it safe, I recommend having 3 of these skills. You got Air Slash attack safely, his passive to lower their attack and int. If your Tyrantel attack isn't higher than the enemy, then I really recommend using Sunshade for the extra healing if you need it, or maybe Last Stand if your Tyrantel can survive at low HP, then hopefully this one makes him a bit more tankier. And then his guard skill, which makes him more tankier. If you don't need his guard skill, then having this one is really fine. Makes him a bit more tankier while also healing him. With the soldiers, I will recommend the Steel Winged Warrior. Now Isolde does have a 2-range skill, and normally the first enemies is usually the top one, so having these guys will help. Or you can use the Cavalier to lower their attack and defense, which adds to a little bit more damage for you. But tanking wise, I would go with Steel Winged Warrior to at least survive 1 hit from Isolde. If you're one of those people that can't one-shot, here's what you do. You go back but not too far away, you still want to be in range where Isolde might move, and then you're going to simply guard. You're going to guard for the increased damage mitigation, and then you're going to apply Tyrantel's talent onto Isolde. So this way, Isolde attacks last. And with Tyrantel's guarding, he can actually counterattack from 2 blocks. So if Isolde chooses to single target you, then you may kill her during the counterattack. If that's something you can't do, then just lead Isolde towards a defensive terrain. For sure, that will definitely help you out. With Andrew, since you can compete with his mobility, I'm gonna play extremely safe. Gonna wait until I get my guard skill back, while at the same time, waiting to apply my talent effect onto Andrew. So that way if Andrew attacks, he's always gonna be attacking last. For some reason, Andrew doesn't have any attacking skill, which is really good, so he's definitely not gonna be one-shotting you. Positioned well enough to be on a defensive terrain, which doesn't matter because I'm gonna one-shot him either way, and then boom, you're most likely gonna kill Andrew. And then lastly, to do with Patricia, with all the buff that you gathered from killing the first 2 enemies, you're definitely gonna be one-shotting Patricia. May as well do all the stuff and then Air Slash Patricia to death. Simply just one strategy. Go back, use the guard skill for the tankiness, apply the talent effect, which is going to be really helpful if you can't one-shot stuff, and then use Air Slash to do some damage to them. Some guys might be able to one-shot anyways, then yeah. But with what Tyrantel has, you really have the upper hand in this one. Now we get to look at his 3C. Guards for nearby allies and immune to displacement and fixed damage. When using this, adds 50% of attack to defense and magic defense, can counterattack range attacks within 2 blocks that cannot be dispelled. Guard range increases to 2 blocks, and offensive and defensive stats is increased. That lasts for 4 turns. After using the skill, it is replaced with Illusion's Fall for 3 turns. If affected by Battle Echo, all buffs on him will not lose their turn duration and can act again within 3 blocks. Now presuming they don't ever tell you the secondary skill, but pretty much what it is that it does have the same passive, but it's a single target doing massive damage, dispels 5 buffs before battle. When the number of allies on the field is less than or equal to 2, the damage to enemies with Seal of Supremacy is increased to 20%. When an enemy is killed, the talent cooldown is reset. After he revives, he's gonna be a lot more enabled with his 3C, similar to Apotheosis. Pretty much it works the same way. So yeah, basically this is the better version of his already existent guard skill, you know, as with most tanks. You know, if you don't have his 3C, then having another faction buffer is really good enough to use Tyrantel. It's just that with his 3C, he doesn't really need anyone. Alright, so if you guys are curious, this is what his 3C animation looks like. Alright, so normally with the second awakening stages, I really don't do them unless they are really difficult to do, which is really rare. 99% of the time, they are really doable. Because this one, you do get 3 other characters that you can use, so you're not always going to be relying on your own character. Just play really smart, let the enemies come to you, and you'll for sure win. So with that out of the way, let's go right on into his showcase. So now that we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at his talents. After taking action, apply Seal of Supremacy to the chosen enemy, whereas they attack last in battle that ignores immunity and cannot be dispelled for 3 turns, that has a 2-turn cooldown. When an enemy with Seal of Supremacy is within 3 blocks, their offensive and defensive stats are reduced. Upon death, manifest the martial spirit of past emperors, which is Imperial Will. You can use Battle Echo on one chosen non-summon allied unit, causing it to inherit all of Tyrantel's ability and act immediately, which occurs once per battle. So right after ending Tyrantel's turn, you'll be able to select the skill, which is Seal of Supremacy. You apply it on one enemy and then they'll, no matter what, always attack last in battle. I find this debuff to be pretty dumb, because if we look at Tyrantel, this thing has a 2-turn cooldown, right? And that debuff lasts for 3 turns, which is a good long while. And the biggest thing is that they attack last no matter who they are fighting. And not only just that, it bypasses immunity. It's dumb. Like, I wouldn't complain about it that much if it didn't do all those things. I might have been more lenient on it if it was just for Tyrantel himself, but the fact that it just does all those things makes it pretty OP. And if we go back, the one little nice thing about this is that if you do position well, you are able to help your teammates. For Tyrantel, for sure, it's guaranteed. What I'm talking about is pretty easy to miss, but what I'm pointing to is the stat down. If Tyrantel is within 3 blocks of enemies who have Seal of Supremacy, their stats are reduced. So right now we do see Sherry with like 1700 attack, 700 defense, and then if we go ahead and see her attack this random cavalry, her attack and defense got reduced by quite a bit. And that's really the only support that Tyrantel actually provides in terms of actually helping his teammates survive stuff. If we do get Tyrantel in a situation where he dies, now this is where my favorite part about Tyrantel begins. We can see now Tyrantel looks really different. He's not able to move, he can't really do anything besides use one skill. But you choose an ally to inherit all of Tyrantel's ability and act again immediately. So I can select it, and you can see I cannot select anyone else. I cannot select on the summon, I cannot select a random NPC, but you can only select your own character that you put out on the field. So yeah, after you select whatever it is that you want to choose, Tyrantel spawns, and then you can act again immediately. And now Tyrantel has a special buff, where it's just Battle Echo, which is just him getting all of his stats back. I do find the description pretty weird because it's really vague. Because it makes it sound like that they get a portion of Tyrantel's stats and let them act again right away. No, it's just Tyrantel basically sacrificing an ally to make himself revive. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, like some other characters who can get away with it. I just really like the way how his works, because it has a major influence on your gameplay. If we do check out one of his unique skill, this one is a passive that increases his normal attack, and when attacked and forced into battle, if his attack is higher than the enemy's attack in int is reduced by 15%. What's even greater about this passive is that it does stack alongside the Seal of Supremacy thingy, where it also reduces the stats. So yeah, that's just like another thing that adds on to his more of his tanking capability. And what some of you guys may not realize is that normal attack damage does account for when you are counterattacking. So you guys saw that I did like around 17,000 damage against Sherry, whereas if I didn't carry that passive, it would be a lot less. Now another one of his important skill that he has is a passive that increases his damage based on his talent's damage reduction. It's a single target that reduces damage taken and heals after battle. This is another one of his major skills. It's what allows Tyrantel to even do a lot of damage in the first place. So yeah, he can be incredibly safe with this. You know, Tyrantel already has some insane damage mitigation in the first place, and the fact that he can just heal on top of that after using this makes his survivability pretty insane. So yeah, without the skill, you can really notice how much of a difference his damage is. So if you really want Tyrantel to be able to do any kind of damage in the first place, you really want that skill. That healing is definitely going to save him a lot. With his guard skill, it's pretty generic. He adds 15% of his attack to his defense amount of defense, can counterattack guards for 2 turns. which also gives him damage reduction too, which is able to stack with his 3C as well, but the only real difference is that damage reduction because he doesn't have that on his 3C. I guess it could be a nice thing to carry like double guard skill if you just want Tyrantel to focus mainly on tanking, but if you already have his 3C, you don't really need to carry that. His other 2C is going to help him out a lot more. That extra healing is definitely going to save him in a lot of tight places, so it's just a lot more valuable. And then speaking of his 3C, this thing has a passive that guards nearby allies and is immune to displacement and fixed damage. It adds 50% of his attack to his magic defense and defense, can counterattack range attacks within 2 blocks, it cannot be dispelled, and guard range increases to 2 blocks. That also buffs him for 4 turns. After using the skill, it is replaced with Illusion's Fall, that lasts for 3 turns. If he's affected by Battle Echo, buff duration doesn't decrease, and he can act again moving 3 blocks. It's just an upgraded version of his already existent guard skill. You can really see that too, like nothing really changed besides losing out on that extra damage mitigation. All those buffs last for 4 turns, but what's different is his Illusion's Fall. And so the next time you are able to use Tyrantel, the skill gets changed into a single target one. The same passive, it dispels 5 buffs before battle. If there are 2 or less allies on the field, deals more damage to enemies with Seal of Supremacy. When eliminating an enemy, it removes the talent trigger cooldown. It feels pretty generic for the most part. The really only important thing is that you just really want to kill if you want to reset the talent cooldown. So now that we have Tyrantel with Battle Echo, his 3C becomes an act again, which is very similar to Apotheosis. And that's really the only real difference whenever he becomes in his Battle Echo form. It just really only enables his 3C to become better, which makes using Tyrantel a bit more effective too. And that's really the only thing that becomes new about him. And it's like part of me wishes that they could elaborate more on that, but at the same time, I'm pretty okay with it considering how much Tyrantel already has. Tyrantel just gets away with a lot of things that he can do. It's pretty ridiculous. And now the moment that you guys been waiting for, my honest opinion about Tyrantel. So, overall, I do find this guy pretty boring for the most parts. Now, before you guys blame me on this, I do know how insane Tyrantel is. Trust me, I know. I've seen a lot of footage of this guy. I playtested him. So let me say first the positive things about him. As a damage dealer, he can get away with a lot of stuff that he can do. It's actually absurd, while being extremely safe too. That Seal of Supremacy debuff is insanely OP. It lasts for a good amount of time that bypasses through stuff, and is able to use quite often too. It is actually so annoying. Like imagine having a close game and one of those opponents is Tyrantel. You're not safe unless you can attack from pretty far. He becomes a bit more better as well whenever he revives because his 3C becomes an act again skill that's very similar to Apotheosis. So yeah, Tyrantel as a damage dealer, it's impressive. As a tank though, oh, he is stupidly strong. Dude gets so much too. Damage reduction, lowers the enemy's offensive stats if his attack is higher with that passive of his. Even stacks on top with the Seal of Supremacy thingy, reduces their stats. And that's really the only thing actually helps his teammates survive too. All you gotta do is position very carefully and is able to have a chunk of defensive magic defense whenever he guards. He can buff himself up, has a 2C skill that heals him, and can attack very safely with that talent of his, and even one of his bond effect too. You see, for what he does, he gets away with absolutely everything that he's capable of doing. He feels unkillable at times too, especially you have like the tanky items too, like Last Rites, the Feather Crown. Oh man, he would be truly unkillable. But what about his negatives? Well, there's his revive. You're sacrificing an ally to bring Tyrantel back, and you must need one to do so. You're not able to do it with summons or anything like that. And I guess you could say maybe his passives whenever they get disabled, especially if you want to see the big damage from him. And perhaps one of the biggest one alongside the revive thingy, that he doesn't provide any support. So yeah, that's really all the negatives I can say about him. The reason why I see Tyrantel really boring is because of how simple he is. Dude just gets away with a lot of stuff that he does. He feels like a generic tank, a generic damage dealer. You know, it's not anything cool. You use it and you get a lot of benefit from it. The only thing that I find interesting is the way how he revives, because it has an influence on your performance, sacrificing a teammate to bring Tyrantel back. And that decision will either bring you the game or it will cost you. Alright, so that was Tyrantel's showcase. I feel like I said so much about him, so I'm gonna end things off with just saying that for regular content, if you need a tank, then Tyrantel can take up that role, but just know that he won't be able to provide anything else but that. He's the best physical tank that we have right now for the mythical team. If you do like the mythical team a lot, the Lightbringer is still gonna be better overall with how much support that she can provide. She has a revive built into her talent too, so that's gonna be even better with the way how Tyrantel works. Still, he's an offensive tank who can do his own thing, so he can fit anywhere, especially with his 3C buffing him up. In PvP, he's also not bad. The dude is so resilient that it feels impossible to kill him. You know, he's flexible and has good versatility. His only issue is that he doesn't offer any kind of support. He's really selfish for the most part. But that's all I got. If you guys did enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to see more, and feel free to let me know down in the comments how you guys feel about Tyrantel. You know, do you guys agree with me? Or maybe you guys want to add more? I would honestly like to hear it. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Your fellow Z.